Hey guys.
Hello.
Hey, hey,
Hey. Good to see you. Welcome
yeah.
everybody. Welcome to the Great Transition. Three students of the wisdom of Kabbalah talking about what is going on in the world. I see somebody else here from India. Hello, Eric from India. It's always fascinating, guys, how people are popping up here from all around the world. Hey, Carly and Julie. Hey, Julie. And Carl in Pittsburgh and Sylvie in the Netherlands and Yahtzee, hi. And Evo. Evo and I were together on Tuesday night studying the forward to the book of Zohar. That was incredible. Good to see everybody. We have a very interesting topic tonight. There is, as far as we want to take this story about who humanity is and where humanity is going, it's impossible at some point. You can start talking about perception of reality. You can just start talking about the nature of reality. No matter where you go, you always end up at some point at this topic. Now, we all experience reality differently. Okay, so let's just say that first. There is no one way that everybody's going to agree that this is how the world is. And that's because of the way we developed. Our brains are wired differently, and even more than our brains, we can get into that substance that we're made of that has been processed through incarnation after incarnation, which affects how we perceive the world. So, in order to at all understand what is true, we have to deal with that. We need to understand the process. If I'm wearing glasses that make me, if I have eyes that make me see the world rose colored, and you have eyes that make you see the world as blue, so debating about the world in front of us is absolutely futile. If we don't understand how, first of all, we need to understand ourselves. That's the
Yep.
first thing. Like, how do I see the world? How come I see the world that way? Are there distortions in the way I'm seeing the world? And even if there's not distortions, just to understand the 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 tool, in all the cars, I think they probably still have it on the side mirror. When you're driving the mirror over here, it says
Mhm.
objects in the mirror are closer than they
Yeah.
appear. Does you have that also? Right. So
Yeah.
it's like if you didn't see that there, you might think that the object was further away, and you might make decisions that probably
Mhm.
after a couple accidents they were forced to put that on or decided to put that on. If you don't
Wait, so
have
even in my
correct,
old car, it still works that way. I just don't have the disclaimer. That's basically what you're saying. Like
I
in
don't know, maybe all the
every
new
car
mirrors
mirror.
they fixed.
I
I
think
just
it's the
remember in
new.
the past it said that. I haven't checked. Actually, probably my new the car that I have now, it's like a 2022 Jeep. It probably doesn't say it anymore because they probably fixed the mirrors with better technology. But in the past, it
Uh,
used
s-
to say
And
objects in the mirror are
you
closer
get
than
that
they
so
little
appear.
indicator too that happens
my car is
automatically.
so old that I don't think. I think it was before they recognized the problem.
Before they
I'm
even put
just.
that on there? Okay.
I'm
The point
wondering.
is this, that if you don't
Yeah.
understand the calibration of that mirror, so
Yeah.
you may turn into the lane and crash.
Sure.
Now, once you understand that objects in the mirror are closer than they appear, so you can calibrate that in your brain, right?
Okay.
So it's exactly the same. We're all going into the world, and nobody gave us, well, some of us got the books that explain it, but we're not born with the book in hand explaining
Ob-
what are all
Objects
of
are not
those.
as they seem. I love it. Nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So no matter how much we try and understand what's going on in the world, without understanding how we're perceiving the world and what calibration factor we're in, we're not going to be able
Right.
to see things correctly.
Yeah,
Now,
but that's also kind of a lot to ask for just a I don't know who we're talking to, but it's kind of a lot to ask for someone who's kind of just given their, I'm given my portion and I deal with my portion and I'm not really thinking about how it connects to the rest of the world. I mean, like if we go back to caveman days, it's like, hey, I want to go to this cave, he wants to go to that cave, and that's possibly the height of the disagreements that we encounter between us in our social interactions. Then you have like a more complex society. You have way more things that we can disagree about, right? But due to the complexity of how everything is put together these days, it's almost like it's too much to even think about trying to approach it in a way. It's like if we just understand where we are, I already have way too much stuff on my plate anyways. But I understand maybe that's not exactly who we're talking to at the moment. But it is probably the right approach. It is probably good to think about that at least.
The thing that happened is as humanity developed from that primitive caveman guy, we now live in a world where, I'm drinking mint tea that came from Morocco, and I'm drinking water that came from,
Fiji.
no, this one didn't come from Fiji. This one came from a remote valley in the Ouachita Mountains of,
It's good to be American.
yeah, you can get whatever you want here, but somewhere not close. Okay, so my water came from somewhere not close, and I got this thing that boosts the microphone, which came, I don't know, from China,
China?
or wherever it came from. I got a microphone, so
China.
everything is coming China. Everything is coming from everywhere, and that's the modern life that we're living. We're we're not cave people anymore, and so that's
Yeah.
also the problem, which complicates things, is that we're each this web, and if you were to tie an invisible thread between every piece of clothing and every chip inside your phone, and where your tea bag comes from and where the mug comes from, every single person
Yeah.
who's here from Turkey, Ertuğrul, I didn't say correctly, in Turkey, but Jolene I know is in Colorado. Every one of you, Kevin here is in Ireland. Hey, Kev. If you just look at what's in your room, if you were to tie some thin rope to everything that's in your room, it would expand across for every single one of
For
us.
sure.
It would
For sure.
expand around
Yeah.
the whole world. So
Yeah.
we're all tied to
Yeah.
each other now. So now
Yeah,
we're all
by
tied
the way,
to each
this
other.
this really reminds me of like the famous how is it called 5 degrees of separation study, right? I mean, and this is interesting. Like I did that exercise with like myself, like thinking if I shake a hand, let's say, with someone who shook the hand of someone who shook the hand of someone, and it holds true, at least for me. Like, I mean, name a person. Like, there's even less than five separating us. And I can
Get
tell
to
you the
understand,
route.
right?
Brad
Like,
Pitt.
yes, I didn't check that. But Trump, yes. And did Trump shake Brad Pitt's hand at some point?
If Trump
Oh
shook
yeah.
Brad Pitt's hand, then you're connected to Brad Pitt also.
There you go. So
That's
I
my
mean,
favorite
if you go like that, anyway. So yeah. Anyway, it's really
we're-
really interesting because we look at this huge, vast world with 8 billion people, and the somehow in this network through five people linked to everyone in the world. That's insane. It's incredible. It's
this
imperceivable,
this web, right? So, and we don't
and we don't
see
see it. Yes, yeah.
all that web. And
Objects
so we
are
also don't
closer than they appear, as you said.
There you go.
There you
So
go.
if
Yeah.
we were a caveman and I wanted to sleep in that cave and you're in that cave, we would fight with each other, and whoever wins would get that cave. Today we don't understand when I push on this, when I call this, when I shake this person's hand. If you are 5 degrees away from Trump, then or Brad Pitt or whoever, so we
Yeah.
don't really understand how the network of our influence
Right.
is rippling.
At one point, you have to stop counting.
Exactly.
But, all right. Yeah, it's too far.
Okay, so we have developed to this point where all of us are connected. Not only that, if we're to draw a line through all the stuff on our desk and all the stuff around us,
Yeah.
we're in this web around the whole world. We also got to a point where our language developed in a certain way, and it wasn't always like this. You could go back
That's cool.
10,000
Tangents
years before.
galore. Warning.
There should like meters on the screen.
You
with
said,
a
yeah,
meter.
there should be. You said
We can all
language.
click, and if we all vote on the same tangent, then you're allowed to like
The blood
take
blood
the
flow to
tangent.
groin.
No,
Meter.
so if okay, so feel free when you're ready. But so now I can push air through out of my mouth and shape the air that's coming out of my mouth, and I can if I'm a good craftsman, I can make you laugh, I can make you cry, I can make you think. I can think of 1,000 things right from now. I could go from a red apple to a scary story to anything. And I hear by pushing and shaping air that's coming out of my mouth, you guys are in the Middle East. I'm here on the east coast of New Jersey. We're
Yeah.
many thousands, we're a giant ocean apart. And I can mold your mind and your
Yes.
feelings across thousands of miles by shaping the air that's coming out of my mouth.
And we take it for granted that we don't even notice that this is what's happening. It's incredible. It's really it's really
That
awesome
I
if you
it's
think
also
about it.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also not just with like speaking with someone, but I mean, if you're just on your YouTube recommended page,
Yeah.
there's so many different realities you can feel from one moment to the next moment. Like, you know, children's show, some tech show, some political show, and you click one button, you enter into like a different like your thoughts and your feelings become something else. You move to another thing, all of a sudden you have a Kabbalah TGT show. In one instant, you're, you know, I guess it is still like Seth said, the moving of the mouth and the throat, which is also pretty cool tangent. But so quickly you're changing your perception. You
Yeah.
know what? I guess it's like what's in focus or what's important. I don't really know.
No, man, our teacher, our teacher gave an example years ago, if you remember, flipping the channel. You know how it's like deciding like what influence you're getting, what influence you're under, is essentially that's it has a lot to do with man's free choice, basically.
We don't think about it like that
We
though.
don't think about it like that, but it's essentially like flipping a channel. And when you decide what values you want to actively put yourself under, what kind of environment, what kind of sphere, what do you give, what kind of influences, imagine yourself constantly completely interconnected and intertwined with everything. And now you can't break that connection. You just can't, because like we did, this network, this web we discussed, everything is interconnected in it, and you're completely interconnected with everything. So you're always under every possible influence there is, and you can't break that connection, but you can't somehow choose a little bit what influence carries more weight on you. What influence is more, you let more, what kind of influence you let more of it into you. And that essentially is how Kabbalah explains all of
What do
man's
I
free choice. Yeah.
want to think about? Right, free choice. Yeah, what do I
Yeah, I
want to think
mean,
about? A
yeah,
little
okay, but
bit.
that's
Yeah.
just Seth, where do you
Tangent
No,
timer
we're,
up.
to
we're
go?
open.
Yeah.
Floor is open. Floor is open. So,
Okay. No,
so say, yeah, go ahead.
no, you keep going,
So,
because
so say we
we have a
get this.
title we need to get to. We
So say,
promised our
so say we,
viewers.
Eventually.
say we get
Although it's
this
vague
concept.
enough, that we don't have to. Go
All
ahead.
right.
Well, through all these wires that are connecting the whole world together, and through this ability to communicate to people to affect the internality of people thousands of miles away, we also find ourselves in a situation where life doesn't allow us to just be an island to ourselves anymore. There's this situation where we're being pushed and pushed to be more and more interconnected between each other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And that's something that is increasing throughout history. Yes.
Okay. So as we're being forced to come closer and closer, there's the pressure. Always, people hit some kind of wall, and it doesn't matter if you're all the way on the left or all the way on your right. There's like this pressure relief valve that happens in humanity, and there is a group of people that, as this web gets more and more complex, and as people kind of move towards this, and it seems like things calm down for a few years, and then it gets more, like for example, during the Clinton years, or I guess if you were living in Serbia, it wasn't so great. during Slobodan and some other places. But in America, it was like the good years. People were just carrying on with life. People were getting along with each other. The races weren't fighting with each other. People, there was religious tolerance. And then, and I'm also sure in Israel, like you had really crappy years of war. And then it calms down for a little while. Yeah, there's always a little rocket
And then
here or
there's
there,
crappy
but
wars again.
then there's crappy wars again. What we see happening, and if you pay attention, and if you, it doesn't matter what color glasses you're looking at, and that's the interesting thing. It doesn't matter what language you speak, and it doesn't matter with what glasses you're born. If you were born with this kind of glasses, you hate the Jews for this reason. And if you were born with this color glasses, you hate them for that reason. The communist left agenda is screaming about hatred of Israel and the Jews for this reason. And the group on the, there's a far right group who's getting louder and louder and demanding that that Israel and the Jews are responsible for all the problems in the world over there. And it's this other factor, in addition to our perception of reality, in addition to this interconnectedness of the world, that there is this tiny group of people living on a tiny sliver of land, and the collective psyche of humanity keeps returning to that factor. And we have to
Yeah.
talk about what that factor is. We have to understand better. We have to understand how our brains are working. We
But
have
what
to
makes you say
understand
that?
how
Did
our-
you see something in the news or something?
we have to understand how our brains are working. We have to understand how we perceive reality. And then we also have to understand that objects in the mirror are closer than they appear, you know, so to speak. And then what is also this other strange variable that's constantly in humanity's equation, no matter how much we try to not deal with it. For example, this week, 7,000 people in Syria were killed. And these kind of things happen all over the world all the time. But this week, guys with machine
7,000.
guns,
7,000.
machine
That's a
guns.
lot of people.
there's a young child over there, I can't say, did this to children, to women.
She
Just
can't hear
guys
us,
and
right?
No,
You're
no.
we're in your
Guys in-
headphones.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're fine. Guys in sneakers in the street, right? I didn't see one protest on any college campus. I didn't hear one thing.
Right.
I barely heard any outrage. Barely.
Wait.
compared to what-
Let me add to the picture if we're already there. I mean, just look at the last 3 weeks, right? So you have this point of comparison that you just juxtaposed for us, like with Syria, right? Like the attention this gets versus the attention of October 7th, let's say, right? The controversy around Israel and the Jews is constantly there. Look at this thing with Kanye West, right? Like, I mean, I don't want to repeat like the all the details of it. If you I assume that most people are aware of this. You have this director.
Just give a few
What, about
details
the
in case
t-shirt?
somebody doesn't know.
Yeah, Chris, give us a zip of what happened with Kanye West regarding his.
Well, he has a history. I mean, he's got this guy. I mean, whoever doesn't know, I guess just quickly, he has a history of saying, you know, he was kicked off Twitter for saying some. I guess they considered it hate speech. Then I don't know how they monitor it nowadays. But yeah, basically came on and then he said straight up, "I am a Nazi," and then he gets a lot of blowback for that, but then also a lot of supporters. So if you were a Kanye fan before, you're trying to like figure out how you can be okay with what he's saying.
And then a few weeks ago in the Super Bowl, he puts up an ad that directs people to his store where
Single item. The
when the
single
single item there is a
It's kinda
shirt with
funny. I mean,
with a swastika.
it's
No, I mean
kinda-
we're laughing at it not from a not without understanding the gravity of this, of course. But I'm saying this is like what is going on here if humanity is a network and you have all of these figures in the network that attract a lot of attention to them, and they're directing all of that attention again to this group. And what you see is this is the thing that really, really boggles the mind when you really put it in perspective. It's a tiny, tiny place and a tiny population in the world. We're talking less than 0.2% of the human population.
But if you are talking about how am I impressed by it, I feel like they're taking up a huge space in like my
And by the way,
presence.
there are some street surveys where they ask people, what is the amount of the Jewish population? And people say, I think there are about 200 million, 300 million across the world or something like that. People can't, it's somehow, if you think about, this is where things, we talked, I really liked the example set in the beginning, right? Like the objects are closer than they appear. Look at what's happening here. You have this very, very little group, again, 0.2% of the human population, even less than that, 15, 16 million people. That's what we're talking about. In almost 8 billion. You look at the map of Earth, you see that Israel is this tiny, tiny little thing.
This is
in by the way, surrounded by the Arab world.
this
So
is
that's
the-
another
And 2
interesting
million
thing.
of the Arabs inside Israel are
Exactly. Yes.
This is the Arab world here, and Israel is right in. You can see my mouse, right?
Yeah, we can't even see
Barely.
it. We can't even see the point that you're people
Yeah,
don't
so
get.
the land that's causing all this problem is
So-
this
so-
tiny piece right in here.
So I mean, the when you look at this comparison, how can such a small place and such a small population get all that attention? You have to ask yourself, what is the mirror we're looking through? What is the prism we're looking through? What is this structure of the world? Go ahead.
They're not the Jews, they're not doing any favors by I don't know, releasing, let's say, like something like Pegasus, right, in a SO group. Like, yeah, you're not doing any favors, like getting a good, or the Epsteins of the world, right? Like when people say stuff like, yeah, but the Jews, they kind of
Okay.
like rule the world.
Sure, there's tons. You can go from Weinstein to Epstein to all kinds of examples, and
Jeez.
you can also go to Einstein, right? And you have that kind of examples, and I can go a long list on that examples as well. But there's also a very disproportionate amount of Nobel laureates in among the Jewish population, and so you can take a bunch of these examples, but I want to tell you to look beyond the 21st century. Let's look to the past for a second. This huge attention to this small group and this constant antagonism towards this group and intense relationship of the world with this group has existed for the last 4,000 years or so. If you research the history of the Jewish population and its relationship with the world, I have it somewhere. I don't have it at hand. But if you see like the amount of for example, pogroms and expulsions and all kinds of things like that, it's really, I mean, the collective thing, the thing that's really etched in the collective psyche of humanity today is, of course, the Holocaust. But that's just recent. That's less than 100 years ago. I'm saying for the last 4,000 years, there are so many intense events involving this group and its relationship to the rest of the nations of the world that something here just doesn't make sense. What is this?
I didn't.
Oh,
vet
there
the
you go.
site. I don't know, the site, but you get it. You get the idea. Starting from 250 CE, each of
Can
these
you zoom
places
in
is
a little
place
bit?
Where
It just looks like a bunch of. Oh yeah, keep going. Okay, here you go.
Expelled, converted, expelled, book burning, property confiscation, expelled, Holocaust, synagogue burning, expelled,
There you
expelled,
go.
expelled,
Yeah.
enslaved,
It's like
enslaved,
the
banned,
cockroach of humanity. It's
massacred.
like they refuse to be exterminated.
So
No, I
from
mean,
the point of view,
yeah.
from the
Now
point of
someone will
view
will
of
will 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 clip Chris,
They're
and
gonna cut
they'll
that. Got it.
they'll
Yeah,
call
clip
us Jew
that.
haters.
Clip that
Um,
for me.
no, from the point of
yeah.
view of the people who are against the Jews, or even if you are trying to ask serious questions, you could say, "What the hell is
Look
wrong
at
with these
this.
people that
Look
everyone's
at,
trying
yeah,
to kill
exactly.
them?"
I mean, if you look at
Just
that,
give up
you
already.
gotta. Here's the thing, and this is something that our teacher
Guys, the
got a
list is
lot
still
of.
going.
Oh my
Yeah. Oh
gosh.
my God. Oh my God. This is. You see. This is. It's what's going on here. What is going on here? And this is something that our teacher also got a lot of fire for just trying to explain that what we're seeing here in this relationship between Israel and the world, the Jews and the world, Israel Jews, doesn't matter, by the way. It's the same. It's an expression of the
Synonymous.
same thing. So this relationship, our teacher went out for many years trying to explain to whoever could listen that something deeper is happening here. And he would say, I mean, look at what anti-Semites are saying. Look at what people who feel this strong antagonism towards the Jews. Look at how they're saying if you were expelled from so many places, there's probably a problem with you. Maybe there is some issue that we're not understanding. And our teacher said it as a Kabbalist Jew, right? But it's so hard for people to. There's knee-jerk reactions, immediate, political correctness, and so we can't go deeper. And if we can't
If
acknowledge
we don't
that
understand that objects in the mirror are closer than they appear, if we don't
exactly,
understand what kind of glasses we have on, we're never going to be able to
A-
perceive the
and
reality
and
correctly.
the problem I think even that precedes that is to even be willing to open our minds to the fact that we might see things incorrectly. Meaning the knee-jerk reaction, the immediate response is just trying to kind of cover it up, call this phenomenon, okay, so there's anti-Semitism, and it's another form of racism. There's racism this, there's racism that, and okay, and then there's this and there's that, and there's politics and so on, and that's it. But for a few thousand years now, we're basically ignoring something very essential and vital to the entire human species. And it expresses itself in a relationship between this group and the rest of the world. And we're just not willing, not attentive, not receptive to looking at at reality differently, and exploring maybe our mirrors are not calibrated. Maybe humanity is not what we think, reality is not what we think, and anti-Semitism is also something. It's just something on the surface that points to something deeper in the human organism, in the collective organism
So
of
how do you make that
humanity.
jump? How do you make that jump between hatred and
Right.
changing my?
I think through what Seth started our conversation with, that we're all connected. I think that's the starting point. And this is also something that if you look at what's been happening in human history, is that we are gradually becoming more aware of how connected we are. And we're on the ground, boots on the ground, let's say, we're also actually becoming more globally interdependent. The more globally interdependent we become, the more this problem, let's say, this issue of the relationship with this group we call Jews is going to stand out.
Didn't
Yeah, go ahead.
didn't Elon Musk say something fascinating? Was that you, Seth? Where something about it was one of the most. It
Oh
was
yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
yeah.
more
I know what you're
recent.
talking about. Seth put it in our chat at some point. Yeah, Musk tweeted. I got it. Elon Musk tweeted, the Jewish people have and will play an instrumental role in saving America. Okay, I mean, look, here's the problem. Every time we read something like that, immediately, people take it as political. We're not a political show. We're looking at just symptoms in politics as well to that point to a deeper thing.
Also,
But
this other lady that's making her rounds, she's Lebanese and she's very like pro-Israel, but she's actually a
Spiegler and I
Christian.
talked to her.
you
Oh,
did,
really?
Bridget?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, really?
It's like a strange component. It's like a different kind of attitude. It's like these. It's like these supporters, or they're not even supporters. They like. She was even crying about how closely she felt towards Israel versus her homeland. So you have like anti-Semitism, but you also have kind of like the opposite. There's like strange components.
Okay, I see that Seth is giving us free reign here. So I'm I don't know why. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I'm gonna.
He's always looking for new visuals.
I'm gonna offer then some way to go deeper here. Okay. So you asked Chris, what? Say it again. How does that
How do we make that? How do we make that bridge? How do we bridge
from
that connection?
from where to where?
From hatred towards like some group of people towards the fact that I need to change my perception of reality.
Right. Okay. So we talked about the mirror example, right? Objects are closer than they appear and all that. And so there's basically two things, let's say, two important truths about reality that are as real as they are far from, they just evade our perception. They're like outside of our field of vision. We're not seeing them. One, that we're all connected. We discussed this already. We're all completely connected. Think about what that means for a second. If all of humanity is connected, it means humanity is one thing. It means that it doesn't matter what happens where, it's a single body, it's a single organism. And even if there's a group somewhere that I think I'm not part of, it's actually part of a body that I'm part of. And we're all part of it. Okay, that's one.
And you can
Two,
even go deeper, quantum and all this like
Of
past
course.
the physical.
Second thing, this is more complicated, harder to see, even intellectually. The entire world is like a small human, is like one man, and every person is like a small world. Meaning, we think we see reality as we think there's me and there's everyone else, me and reality, me and other people, and I and them, we both live in a space, in a physical space. The deeper perception of reality is that all of this experience is happening in a collective being, in a collective sensor, a feeler, a vessel that holds this feeling we call reality. And every part of this vessel is similar in its structure to the entire vessel. So this is something we can see in nature in the structure of fractals. For instance, right? You look like at a piece of cabbage, the piece is similar to the entire cabbage. You look at snowflakes, you see that they all have the exact similar structure with slight, it's a similar, self-repeating kind of pattern, right? And this is the deeper structure of humanity. What that means is that what we think of as many nations in the world, many countries on different continents, separated by oceans, different kinds of people, different personalities, different nationalities, as well as this division between the Jews and the rest of the nations of the world, all of that also exists within the interior structure of every human. Otherwise, we wouldn't perceive it on the outside. In every person, there is something called a Jewish part, and in every person, there is the rest of the nation's part. And this is how reality is built. It's inside each and every one of us. And that's also why we see it on the outside. And so reality is both, We're both interconnected, but we're also integrated, integral. Every piece represents the whole and is a reflection of the whole. That's a reality. It's like a holographic reality. It's counterintuitive to us. Through our five
The fact
senses, we
that
don't get that.
the
Yeah.
fact that I at all relate to something means that it's already has some kind of it exists within me somehow.
Yes.
Let's explain that for a second because it's
Not
not
no, it's not obvious at all.
super obvious, but once you explain it, then when there's I don't have any scientific data about this, but I do remember seeing some that like when a person is very very like homophobic, for example, it's because he's afraid of these own like his own feelings inside, so he push it on the outside. Like there's a certain thing
Oh
that
yeah.
the
It's there are mechanisms in psychology that explain things that way. Repression mechanisms and other things. Yeah, things like
yeah,
that.
so if you're fighting against something on the outside, there's some inner
Listen, yes, there's a thing inside that there's a struggle inside that projects or manifests as a struggle that you identify outside. Yeah, I mean,
so
there's
explain what Chris was saying.
what's the name of that? You just brought up another example to mind. What's the name of that psychologist who talked about Jung? I think it was Carl Jung that would talked about the collective unconscious. Was it was it a
We
Jungian
did
thing?
talk about that a lot.
Anyway, so what is that? It's essentially, I don't know if he was inspired by Kabbalah or something like that, but essentially, it's a way of looking at reality in the same way. You're basically saying we somehow share a collective psyche, and that psyche also exists in each and every individual. I mean, when you do research in psychology about dreams, that's a really interesting one. You see that human beings, as unique as we think we are, and everyone is special, and everyone has his own thing and his own thoughts. Me, when I'm dreaming,
all
right?
been naked in the grocery
we
store.
all have roughly very similar nightmares, very similar dreams, very similar.
He called them archetypes, like the hero,
There's archetypes,
the
yeah.
grandmother, the
Yeah.
shadow.
Sure.
This,
And
right, these
look at
archetypes.
look at stories in different cultures. It's ultimately, you said archetypes, so that's what brought it to mind. I mean, if you look at stories from different culture that never, as if never met each other, still you see that there are the same kind of elements, different combinations, different variations, but the same structure. And why is that? Because we're built in a similar way. It's not just that we have two hands and two legs and two eyes and so forth. Our internality is built the same way, and all of humanity is also built the same way. So this is called in Kabbalah the collective and the particular are equal. Yeah, go ahead.
Like the floods, the flood story, for example. Like we have Noah and the flood, right? So there's
sure.
over 100 or 200 flood stories throughout humanity from like every continent. So it's not as if it's fake or it's not fake. We don't even understand what consciousness is. We don't even understand how we're projecting. For example, we could even get into we want to get back to the title of the show, but you can't just hit it right on the nose. You have to start to understand what, like we started with. How is my brain working? How am I perceiving?
We have to
things?
build
What
the mirror,
glasses
that shows
do I
you
have?
the
Yeah.
objects in the right way.
So for example, when we say that something is that the Big Bang happened 14 billion years ago,
Right.
what does that even mean? Or so we have
Yes.
right. So
yes.
all these things. Now it's
Exactly.
a hard one to tie yourself to the dock and just float out with me for a second.
Okay.
When we're not going anywhere. We're not moving. All of reality is building itself around us through our senses. So when we say that something is far away, what that means is it's a distance of a feeling. It feels
We
to
feel
me
it as
that's-
far,
We
yes.
feel that
Yeah.
something
Exactly.
happened. But
Yes.
there is no actual past. There is only now, and that in this now, I feel that that was then, and I feel that dinner will be in 3 hours. That
Yes,
something will
exactly.
be then,
Yeah.
and something was then. And also, for example, when we think of like how much, when we think of how much we love someone, and we think of the hurt it would feel if we were disconnected from them, that it's just a measurement of the feeling. So all
Yes.
of these perceptions of distance.
But Barasulam gives this great example in about equivalence of form. Essentially, he says something like, if you can be really close to say a political opponent, but you're actually internally opposite to him, right? Or you can be like in a, like, to put it simply, right, in a party that you really didn't want to go to, so everyone feels like strangers, right? Or you could be in one side of the world and your lover is in the other side of the world, and you feel really close to her, like there's nothing in between, right? So space, time, as well as what do we see on the outside? That is all our perception of reality. And that includes what we think of as the structure of humanity, where the nations, the continents, the people, and the Jews. that's like as what? As a group that for some reason has this disproportionate gets this disproportionate attention, for better or for worse, mostly for worse, from the rest of humanity for thousands of years. Why? Because that reflects something deeper that we can't reach, that is in our soul. The structure of humanity is a reflection, a projection of the structure of the soul. And when you study the wisdom of Kabbalah, that's where really things like explode for you, and the picture begins to become revealed, because you study about these discernments, that the roots that create that like the lines of code that create the reality around us. And then you understand how there are different parts of the soul, and that the soul needs to go through a transformation called correction. And in that correction, some pieces have to create a certain connection between them, and then spread around the world and spread that connection, and then reconnect with all of the other pieces of the soul, and how there's a whole process where this thing happens. And
So it
in
would be
our
really
world,
helpful.
it has a certain appearance. Yeah, go ahead.
It would be very helpful if we had a story, a really good story that
To
explains to a
explain that,
person,
I,
what
I
what.
think it's called the Bible, but
Yeah, but it's
but
it's
it
it's
didn't work that well.
actually,
Actually,
it's funny that
yes,
you say that. It's funny that you say that, because if you needed to write, if you needed to communicate something to billions of people,
right.
it's the ideal. It's the perfect. It seems impossible that that would be how you would do it. But
Yeah.
if you understand the process and understand how everything is working, then it turns out that
Hello.
then 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 it turns out that some you need to get a code. There's a funny Johnny Cash song called "A Boy Named Sue" or something like that. The father understands. Hold on a second. Be there for you. So I knew that if I named you Sue, you would, get all of the powers that you needed to be able to grow up to be a man, and so when you get to the end of the story,
Nice. Yeah.
you understand why the whole thing happened. And so if we open that book today and there's a snake talking to a woman and a bush is on fire and people splitting, the ocean is splitting, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
if you
th-
get to the end, you understand.
but people get, this is another thing that's very difficult. Stories are so powerful. They're so powerful. It's built into the way our brains work. We have a need for closure. That's why every story works, because we need the closure. That's why soap operas, work so well, and so on. And basically the cliffhanger is what we need the closure anyway. And the structure of a story has with exposition, and then the whole development and reaching a main scene. It's what is a story if not a reflection of who we are, if you think about it? Because stories are unique to us, and we came up with stories because that's how we're built. So it's not that stories are this thing we look at. The stories are an expression of how we think, of how we anyway. So because stories are more powerful, are so powerful, we first of all, they're much stronger. They're a lot stronger than the truth, and people get attached to stories so strongly because when you shatter a story, you're shattering how a person thinks. If I'm attached to a story, and now you're going to tell me that story is not exactly what I thought, I'm going to have to adjust, and that adjustment is very difficult. And so what's really interesting is that, religion is all stories, but let me put it differently. Kabbalists took a lot of fire throughout the years because they're explaining the deeper the deeper meaning of the stories and what they are really what they represent. But going into the deeper level involves understanding that the story is just a story. Is just the outer layer, the external peel of something essential that lies within. And so
We need
you
to.
have. Yeah. No,
Oh, go ahead.
keep,
Sorry.
go ahead. Go
Sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. Go
Well, it
ahead.
would be so
This.
good to be able to
Yeah.
create a simple, so we understand. My niece is here, right? You can't just give her the program of life. You have to explain it in a way. So you say like the Bible, that's the program of life, but we should be able to create a simplified version of just what the hell is going on here. Who are we? What is the
Yeah.
process we're in the middle of, and what are these forces, and what are these feelings inside me, and give a person an orientation to not just their emotions and not just their family life, but also the Jews, the world, the nations, the wars, the Muslims, the Christians. Like the whole thing is contained
Yes.
in that one book. Now, like, let's break it down and help people.
Yeah.
It'd be such a good idea to come up with like a simple,
And you would have to do it,
modern,
though. You would have to do it to write a new one in every generation, but
yeah,
but
or every 3 weeks,
or every
but you could
three.
have
Yeah,
maybe
exactly. In our
AI
time,
is
every three
iterate it
weeks.
or
Yeah.
something.
That is crazy that something like the Bible that was written so long ago, what else do we even touch that's written that long ago? I mean,
Yeah.
even if you
What
talk about
else has such an
Shakespeare,
effect? It's such a weird. It's true. It's such a weird thing.
nothing
It's
else
like
is relevant. I mean,
there
not that the
is,
Bible is relevant per se relevant, but
but at least
nothing
it's
has focus
relevant
on it.
to so many millions of people. And how is that possible? I mean, it's the only book that has such a power, such an impact on humanity. There's no doubt that it's the most impactful book. And so where is this coming from? What is it really saying to us, right?
The
And
Jews.
why does it keep talking about the Jews? the This is, we're getting into very difficult
The hate,
territory,
the
terrain
hatred
to
though, the
navigate here.
hatred is the hatred is so real. I mean, all this talk about Nazi stuff, like we mentioned before. I mean, you've got. Did you see in France there were these
Let's hope
naked?
YouTube, by the way, doesn't shadow ban our channel
That's
because of this.
dude, it's
Yeah,
over.
yeah. Look for
You
us
have
on
those
X from
naked
next week.
Nazis. Yeah, we'll go. Yeah. You sold us, Elon. These naked women
What?
marchers, the not with the not swastikas on their chest. it's a you don't just put a swastika on your chest.
Okay,
Like
say a few words
it's just
about
an
it, because I only heard about it from you, and I mean I assume that a lot of people don't know what you're talking about. So what's
Listen,
the
it's on X, so you get a lot different material there, and apparently I'm pretty sure it was in France. It was just not a lot of. I didn't read into it. You kind of get the whole picture with that one picture, which is just a bunch of women topless walking through the streets, chest painted, swastikas, stuff about
swastikas on
fascism
their naked chest?
on their neck, but it's like and you have to go out and you have to be loud, and you can see in their face they're very angry. It's like it's like putting a swastika on is like it's like saying like the F word. It's like, oh, like when like it's deep, it just has, it's like you said, it's like a story.
It's visceral.
There's so much
It's visceral.
in that. It's
It's
very
it's
visceral,
a
and you
gut
just wanna-
level.
it's a-
It's a gut level thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So when you see that out there, you're like, first of all, who are these women? Why do they? What are they? What's the connection? And who knows? Maybe it's not exactly connected to the Jews, right? But it is right at a little in some respect, in some way. The hatred, though. Yeah, you're talking about like some explanation. Yeah, we should be able to explain what's going on in reality, explain. And on the other hand, you're not really dealing
Right.
with a majority who are willing to,
But
investigate.
I
So
would
much.
say that this kind of people, you're right. They're I don't think they're the target of the explanation, the target audience, because at the moment they're closer to the consequences level. You know what I mean? That's another thing. Humanity, there's like, think about it like basically some people are closer at different times in different times in human history. Different parts of humanity are closer to their free choice, let's say, right, or to their ability to influence deeper layers of the human species. If you think about it also in your body, this kind of holds true. You have many different cells and organs and so forth, and there's different organs with different roles. And typically, the more you have an amount of something, the less is its impact. And the smaller it is, or the more unique it is, the higher is its impact.
Like the skin versus the pineal gland or something.
But pineal gland, yeah, pineal gland. Anyway, but they're both important, and in a collective body and in a spiritual structure, there has to be wholeness, meaning that even the smallest skin cell is as important as the one in the heart. But that's
hard
in
to
regards
reconcile.
to, yeah, that's hard to reconcile. But in a system of wholeness and perfection, nothing is redundant and everyone is equal. It's a circle. It's a perfect circle. Meaning, a circle means that every point on the circle has the same distance to the center, meaning they're all equal. So the spiritual structure is ultimately a circle, but in our development to recognize it, to perceive that circle, there are levels. And some of us awaken first, some of us awaken later, some of us have this role, some of us have that role. And there's a group in humanity that was put together from representatives of the entire human organism. That's another thing that a lot of people don't understand about this group we call Jews. It's not a group that existed for eternity.
Grassroots in Africa or something.
Exactly. This is a group that came to be as a result of humanity becoming a multicultural thing in ancient Babylon 3,800 years ago or so. And that it gave birth to a group that came up with this idea of, let's get people from here and here and here and here and here and here, all of those many different families and clans and tribes and groups that came to Babylon, which was like the New York of humanity, but the only one at that time, right? And from representatives of all the groups in humanity, or most of them. And humanity at that time, by the way, is what, like 10 million people. I mean, they say between 10 to 30 million people. That's it. So we also don't get that. The 8 billion, that's a reality only in the last 150 years that we grew so much. Before that, we were 2 billion. Before that, we were 1 billion. And if you go 4,000 years ago, we're just a few million people. And so the different people in humanity formed a group that was like a meta group, like a meta nation, a nation whose goal was to discover how there's one force of nature that connects all the different people. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, or yellow, or you have this dialect or this culture or this mindset from this walk of life or that walk of life. They understood the universal force that lies between human beings, connecting them, and they focused on discovering their connection with that force through their unity. And that's why, and that's where that's the little known story, birth story of the Jewish people. What happened later is already history, and everything becomes distorted and convoluted and confusing. But that's where it starts. And
That's already
that
so
happened.
unique.
Yeah. I mean, let's stop here. We don't have to tell the whole thing in one.
That's
one
but if you just want to sit on that for a second, that already by itself is really unique. I mean, you don't really that doesn't actually. I mean, it kind of happened. I guess you could say maybe America. You had a bunch of
America is a very
Protestants.
interesting example. By the way, I remember a lesson with our teacher some 15 years ago. 20 maybe even, between 15 and 20 years. And it was about for some reason, there was a discussion about the United States and how it formed. Our friends from America asked questions. And our teacher, Kabbalist Dr. Michael Lightman, was explaining how this is something unique that happened in history, and in a way, the success that America had and the influence it had on the world are related to the fact that it was a collective of a connection of a lot of different people, and it's some level of connection that needed to happen. And so there's nothing coincidental in the history of humanity. When we look at these big milestones of human development, these are reflections of corrections that the collective soul needs to experience in order to understand what it is and who it is. And every nation has a role in that. It's not that we're saying every person has a role, but there are some organs in the body that have a specific role that influences everyone. And that's the kind of group that we think of as Jews or Israel or whatever. Yeah.
Listen, you'll know that we got to a good place if you ask, I don't know, the next GPT iteration or whatever, like, who are the Jews? What are they doing? Why do we hate them? And they answer something like what you said. That would be hey, listen, eventually everyone's just gonna have to take whatever artificial super intelligence is created and then released to the public. They're not going to be second guessing things like that they read from this supercomputer. So if they're able to talk about the Jews like you just said, well, I don't know, maybe that'd be good. Maybe that we could expect something good out of that.
When you're 5 years old, you never think like, I need money. Then when you're 18 years old, you realize you don't have it, and then you need it. So there's like three, and then you start working, and then you get some. So there's like three phases there. The first phase is, I don't even know that there's an issue. I'm just living my life like a caveman, like anyone. I don't even have any conscious of it. The next phase is, I realize there's a problem. I feel a lack of something. And that's this problem that whether you're on the left or the right, you say, there's some issue there. And then you need to go out and fix. And this is our next state as humanity, is finding out what is this thing that we're all missing inside. And everybody knows, doesn't matter who you are, whether you're on the left or whether you're on the right, we have an empty place in our heart that needs to be filled, that needs to be connected, that needs love, that needs care, and that's across all humanity. And that is the thing. Whether you name the hate like this, or you poop
Yeah.
on the people for this, or you say that you're this or you're this, identify that you need an answer to this question. People somehow think that behind it all, these people are withholding something, and we're now at that. We're not at the baby state where we didn't even realize there was a problem. We're at the state we realize there's a problem, and we have to understand where's the correct solution, and then make a bunch of efforts to get there. It was a valiant attempt, guys. This is a gigantic topic and not an easy
Yeah.
one to try and get into, but bravo for
trying.
Thanks for
trying.
leading us there.
Yeah, and hopefully all the AIs will get the correct story. We should keep talking about this online, so when it goes to search for answers,
Yeah,
it just
it's a
doesn't make up
it's a
some
good point.
crap that's somewhere else, but that it understands. This is a group with Abraham and Babylon that is mixed from everybody. And all right, we'll be back next Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And for all you Europeans, thanks for following our time zone change over here. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
One for all and all for one. Who's right or wrong don't matter none. We're talking about survival of the human race. Connecting love or burning hate. Which one will be our common fate? It's time for the arrival. A unity, y'all get it straight.